Give me nyam, hey. Now my young bees on my dog, now my young bees on my dog. Now my young bees on my dog. Now my young.
Okay, so for accounting, I like to break it up into the three ways in which they can test it. They have your calculation, and then it's your theory, your discussion questions, and then the third one is your journals. So your journals, you have your correcting journals, you have your normal journals, and then you have your performers. And then, so with the calculation questions, well, that one is easy.
Okay, so with your calculation questions, I'd probably say you need to know your standard well, because as much as it's calculation, it's pretty much applying your standard. You need to know what moves certain things. So I like to make example of depreciation because I feel like it's one of the easier topics. You need to know, for example, what are the different ways to calculate depreciation. There's your straight line method, and then there's your, I think it's your
accumulated, and then those
yeah, but you need to know
the cost.
You need to know your standard so that you can apply it. So calculation is easy and all, but it's only easier if you know your actual standard. So your exam technique around your calculation would be that. So I can't say, when she says accounting, the calculations are easy, I think she means that in the sense of there's a lot of method marks. That's why I come back and say, like, know your standard, because it's that thing of, yes, maybe you used the wrong useful life, but you know what, for the fact that you took your cost minus your residual value divided by your useful life, yeah, that for just that you already get a mark. And then when you go exam technique, is to say that depreciation that you got, when you're calculating your carrying value, take your cost minus the depreciation that you got. So never think that I did, like sometimes you're writing and you're like, I know I'm writing nonsense. So then now you have reservations about, do I still use that answer? With accounting, it's very important that you take that wrong answer that you have, use it and continue with it, because then they're gonna give you those marks, those principal marks of you are using the depreciation that you got. Also, your presentation marks. So this is just an exam technique. So your presentation marks is literally you get marks for having a presentation. So if they ask you for an SFP, you get marks for literally saying that whatever company as at, so you get, and then just they used to tell us like have a skeleton of your SFP, for example, you already get 1 mark for having written that. And then
so you draft your skeleton and then do your workings. So what I do is that if it's an SOFP, I will write SOFP year ended, whatever not, draw the line. If I need a line, some people don't need the line is not important, they don't mark you for the line. And then the next page I have all of my workings. So you know how in accounting your workings are easily the most important things that you could ever do right for yourself. Because if your workings are referenced properly and they're referenced back to, even if they are wrong, they will get you the marks that you need to pass. So yeah, with calculation questions, with accounting, honestly, we've been doing accounting since high school. Okay, some people didn't do it in high school. It hasn't changed. They've just been adding more things, more difficult things on top of what we already know. And I think what's important when it comes to calculation questions, not even just calculation, even with journals, everything in accounting, because everything stems from the calculation, because even the journals, they come from the calculation and then you need to input it into the journal. So you need to read what has been asked. So especially for movements like depreciation, your impairment, your interest, your whatever not, there's always that trick they want to put in as to when is the year end. Take note, is the year end 31 December? The asset was bought in June. That means you're only accounting for 6 months of the year. You see, if they tell you the year end is 31 December 2024, but the asset was bought in 2014, you know that you have to, when calculating the depreciation for this year, you have to account for all of the other years. And then if it was sold mid-year this year, you can't now calculate, account for the full year's depreciation. You have to account for the fact that it has been depreciated. Maybe in some year in 2018 it was impaired, so it lost value somewhere, somehow. It's all about reading the question and making sure that you immerse yourself in that question basically, and write get every piece of information to make your answer as close to what the answer is.
Also on the reading, because I know most artists give you like reading time and they give you writing time. With your reading time, please try to read. Like, yes, read. And I know sometimes you like feel like, oh no, this is triggering something. And I think in my earlier varsity years, I'd get tempted to sort of like start answering on the paper, but try to just keep your reading time to reading. Like Sindo is saying, sometimes you miss something as, you know, like as accounting students, the importance of missing ignore VAT or ignore deferred tax. So it's that thing of even if you're not a highlighter person, so I feel like, but with certain things, try highlight. So when they say ignore, try highlight that so that as even when you're answering, you're also very aware that they said ignore this. And then avoid starting to answer the question before you get your required, because you don't want to cut your reading time short just because when you felt like on this question they're going to ask depreciation and you felt like when you had to like answer depreciation. So use your reading time to actually read.
Yeah, and then when it comes to your journals, like we said, journals, they come from your calculation questions. You have your you have your correcting, you have your normal journals, you have your performance. So your performance, obviously they lean more towards the first three, and that's a whole different topic on its own. But then with your journals also, you know that additional information, when they do not tell you to ignore deferred tax, please always calculate your deferred tax and put it there in the journal. It's the difference between you getting full marks for a journal question and then just getting it all right, but then missing all the marks for deferred tax.
Okay, then I also know like in undergrad they used to stress the I'm not sure about other varsities, but they used to stress the importance of, for example, you know, bank is SFP item. So we would like write, for example, if you say debit bank, and then you always had to write like SFP inside. And if you missed, UJ was very fussy about it. Like, if you missed SFP, then so also please keep that in mind. Please keep that in mind for your journals. Also I'm not sure how you call it, that description at the end, you know, like if you're saying like
narrative.
Yeah, that narrative. Like unless they say you can exclude narratives, include it. Yeah, that's also
so
makes you.
If they don't explicitly say don't do something in accounting, do it. Yeah. Just do it. Especially deferred tax. About deferred tax is the monster that just came into our lives in second year and just never left. So yeah.
Hey guys, also for, I think on the standard side, this is more for like your third year MG or CCA people, but
for discussion.
For your standards, your B part of your standards, guys, please make that your B part for those, like it's your examples, please make that your best friend, because accounting, like there are such good examples in that B part that like if you just open it up while doing a question, it'll help you. Especially I remember, I think it's the share-based payment, they have pretty good examples for share-based payments. And then for your discussion questions, your standard again, be it the A part or the A1 or A2, because literally you're going through measurement. You need to write, like for example, if it's 15, your 5-step revenue recognition, it's there, it's outlined there in your standard. So you can literally do that and then you apply it, but it just makes it so much more easier. Also when they say like critically evaluate or whatever, know that your first reference point is the standard, because for you to critically evaluate, because it's so theory based, you need to have your standard with you.
Yeah. But then also with your discussion questions, I think with everything, guys, I feel like the most important thing is understanding the question. So you know how they will say discuss the recognition. When they say recognition, guys, they mean recognition. They don't mean measurement and recognition, they just mean recognition. So don't be out here trying to discuss how an asset is measured, Mark 10. No, just discuss the recognition and move on. But if they say the accounting treatment, then that's when they want the measurement from initial, then you break it up, initial recognition. You have your initial measurement, you have then, is it called substantive measurement? Subsequent.
Bombastic side eye. Criminal offensive side eye.
Then you have your subsequent measurement, and then how it's subsequently recognized. And then you have your disclosure. Most of the time they always say leave out disclosure. But then if they don't say leave out disclosure, then discuss disclosure. And one thing I like about accounting discussion questions is that, if they say accounting treatment of PPE, you open your IAS 16, you find there the recognition, the definition. Find it, you define it, that's your 1 mark, you apply it, how it ties back to the definition, you go to the next step, which is your measurement. You just follow the standard exactly as it is and you will be okay, guys.
Yeah, guys, then for undergrad babies that don't have standards.
But wait, sorry, they're now moving more towards disclosures. So they also need, like, even if you don't know it like that, just always read it and flag it properly because they can easily say critically review the disclosure or whatever.
Oh, and also they like tasting notes for disclosures. They will just say the note for director's remuneration, and you've never seen that in a society.
Yeah, guys. So like our boss lady says, yeah. And then also I remember one of the hardest things for me was applying those definitions, like what's your asset definition, what's your whatever. So yes, know your asset definition, know all the definitions, but also know, like even in undergrad, remember to apply things. Don't just theory dump things. Know when to apply. And also with your discussion, your calculations, as much as you have standards for those like in higher grades, and then for everybody else, like practice your questions, guys. Like especially discussion questions, but sometimes I know like you look at a discussion question, you're like, nah, I can just like read through it. But it also helps. I feel like for me, it helped like sort of like you get to practice your critical thinking, you get to practice your memory retention, you get to practice like a lot of things by actually sitting down and writing down. Also because if you have time management problems, you get to see like, and you get to improve your writing because you want to know like how many minutes can I answer this question. So always come back to that, like actually writing down things, and then also like your calculation questions you be right.
Yeah, and discussion questions, guys, for me, I feel like accounting discussion questions are tricky. Your assets, define liability, sharp, those are cool, whatever. But when it comes to your actual standards, your actual IAS, when they say they want the definition of the lease, is this a lease? Does this contract pertain a lease? Do you understand that that question could either be a lease, could either be IFRS 15? So do you really know whether it's a lease?
Okay, so with regards to that also, the question she's asking,
no,
she has a point, but where it's like they ask you, is this a lease, for example, but they also feel like it could be another standard.
Okay, maybe
sort
IFRS
of like
15 is a stretch. It's normally IAS 40 that they will.
Or they will. Yeah, so rather not.
IFRS 16 or 15, go?
I said IFRS 15 and 16.
Oh.
Okay, so with regards to like a question where they ask, is this a lease, but you feel like it could be something else, disprove the first part of it, but don't spend so much time disproving it. Rather spend a lot of time proving that it's something. So you want to say it's not a lease because it doesn't mean, because usually with the accounting standards, I think the nice thing about it is usually it will get triggered that it doesn't meet the standards so early in your discussion. So once you see that it's not meeting the definition of a lease, stop it there. Don't feel like you need to now go further. Like stop it and then start saying that, but it could meet IAS 40.
Yes.
Then start discussing, because that's actually where your marks are as well. So also have that thing in mind of don't waste so much time writing things that are not relevant to a paper.
Yeah. So with discussion questions it's tricky, Shame. I really believe with accounting, also practice for discussion question helps. Like doing as many as you can so you can see it from different angles and different points of views. Like IAS 37 is another tricky one.
Yeah, so for accounting, we would pretty much say that's pretty much it.
And do the TATs if you're in a university that has TATs.
Yeah.
And also consulting. I think it helps more for accounting.
And also guys, another big topic in accounting is IFRS 30. So your consolidations and whatever not. That one personally.
Practice.
Yeah, practice, and I would really advise that you use the textbook.
Yeah, your group.
The group's financial, what is it called? Prince Lou?
Yes, you guys know that. You guys know that.
You know the textbook we're talking about.
So please use that. Yeah,
that textbook is very, very helpful. For me, it was, you do the examples, you read, like they give you such a great breakdown in that whole textbook as a whole. So personally, for also, groups, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, because also once they introduce groups, they're gonna come out. Okay, guys.
Mind you, every question becomes a group question. They're gonna say IS 16, but it's groups. They're gonna say IS 40, but it's groups. They're gonna say IS 15, but it's groups.
So that's it for accounting. We're gonna do the last module, which is finance.
But it's separated into two. You have your finance portion, and then you have your costing.
Okay, so for your finance, I think most of us like finance. Your finance is more the theory-based and the easier calculations that you can sort of like follow through. So for that, I think that's from undergrad all up until CTA. One of the most important things, like I said in the other part of the video, is that please practice your discussion questions. Especially, I think in finance is very important because finance requires you, like when you answer discussion questions, it's very like critical thinking. So you always have to think almost like outside of the box because yes, there's answers in the scenario most of the times, like you can sort of like take out qualitative factors from the scenario, but sometimes you also have to take out from your current affairs. So you'd add in load shedding, you add in the interest rates and stuff like that. So always make sure that you practice your discussion questions and then also answer them, like mark them. When you mark them, please mark them like what is it? Objective.
Yeah, be objective.
Be objective when you mark your finance questions. And then also, so that's also your capital budgeting and
your strategic decision making,
yeah,
your finance decision, your investing decision, everything that has to do with decision making, it falls under finance.
So with regards to that, also remember, I think those things for capital budgeting, for example, like know your, what can I call them? Know your principles. Know the things that you don't include in a capital budget and the things you exclude. Because also, like as you get, like in the earlier parts of varsity, you need to know how to do a capital budget section. You need to know how you structure a capital budget. When you start with, when you start with like, you either start with net profit or you start with the cost, right? So know the different ways you can start your capital budgeting, one, and then know the principles of it. It has to have an impact on your decision for you to include it in your capital budget. So don't just include some costs.
It's irrelevant.
Yeah. So
as they would put it.
Yeah. So if it's irrelevant, remove it. And then also like your important things about you do your tax calc separately and then you bring it in. Like know your concepts, know your principles very properly. And then as you get further, so that's building a foundation in undergrad. And then as you get further to like third year CT, then they start asking you critically evaluate, criticize. And then also kind of like something of the difference between critically evaluate and criticize. So when someone is criticizing you, what are they doing? They're telling you everything that's wrong with you. And then critically evaluate. Yeah, it's the good and the bad. Because when you say critically evaluate, I think pretty much the difference is that evaluation part of it. It's that I am telling you what is good.
What are you seeing? Basically, evaluate means tell me everything that you see. Don't just tell me what's bad about me. Fine. You don't like this about me, but what do you like about me?
So I think for me, that question is one of the questions that is very recurring in finance, and that inability to differentiate between the two is the thing that could cost you marks. So also know that. And when they say critically evaluate or criticize, they always say that don't look at the question and be like, what is wrong with this budget? No, look at it and read the information and then say, how would I do it? And then only from then will you look at what's done, and then you'll be able to see what's wrong with it. Because often, I think with those kind of questions, you often look at it and be like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with this thing. But if you look at it to be like, I would have done this, then you know what is wrong with the question in a way. Yeah. And then also have your...
But then... Yeah.
Also, always have your pistol analysis in mind. I think pistol is very important because so always have your pistol analysis in mind because it's going to help you a lot with your discussion questions as well. And then
so for me with math, I won't lie, I have a love-hate relationship with math. It's never been great, it's never been good, it's always just mid. With your models, the one that she's talking about now, your pistols, your porters, you need to be able to identify which is the relevant module for that relevant question. Can't just always say pistol. No. Pistol is more for your, not for your macro. Is it more for your macro environment?
Yeah, external.
Yeah, I don't know. It's the external. But then if you are trying to But I don't know, the idea is that you must be able to identify the right model for the question that you are trying to answer at that time. You know how your porters will speak to your customer preferences, what are your suppliers, your competitors. Read the question, understand the question, see what it's wanting, what is it that the question wants from you. If they tell you straight out, do a SWOT analysis, you know you focusing on your strengths, weaknesses, whatever not, strengths, weaknesses, threats, and opportunities. And I think I learned this recently also. SWOT analysis, shame, is a bit difficult for me, but I learned it recently that your threats and your, what is the one that goes with threats? It's the external portion, and then your weaknesses, and the other one is the internal. So it's internal within the business, and then the other one speaks to the external. So be able to identify with, okay, this is what I can put here, this is what I can put under a strength, this is what I can put under a weakness, this is what I can put under an opportunity. And yeah, but then those models for math, they're important throughout the whole sort of module, because sometimes they will ask you directly, do a SWOT analysis, use 5 quarters models to do 1, 2, and 3. But then you will go into your questions, and then you'll have your investing decision. So your investing decision is when you want to, it's those questions when they want you to decide which project is the one that is most beneficial for your business. Even then, those models must come in, because you must know how they benefit you as a business in the short term, how they benefit you in the long term. You must know how your customers are going to receive it. You must know how your competitors are going to react. You must know how your suppliers, the supplier, do you have a supplier? Is the supplier from overseas? Is it local? Are you able to control the supplier? Not control per se, but is it, you know how something when it's overseas, it's the thing of, it might be frowned upon, it might be, people might not be as happy to like buy your product because you decided to just partner up with someone who's overseas where you could have chosen someone local. So with math, it's more applying.
Yeah, like also put yourself in everyone, sort of like try to put yourself in everyone's shoes. Like she's saying, if there's a decision that you're about to make, a business decision, and for example, outsourcing, when they are saying that you want to outsource, put yourself, one, you as a business, and then also think of you as an employee. How would you feel if your boss came and said, want to do this, but want to outsource instead of just then using the people that are already? So always sort of like try to make yourself versatile by putting yourself in everyone's shoes.
Yes, you are the business. Yeah, with math, you are the business, you are the customer, you are the employee, you are the supplier, you are everyone. So make sure that your answer covers everything. And then when it comes to the calculation portion of it, personally, I used to look at it, you know, with your financing, your investing decisions, they're more like IFRS 9 from accounting. It's just in the table format. But then obviously, like Shalom said, with math, like I remember our dean in CTA, he wanted to have a conversation with us because we were failing. But he came to us and asked us, but guys, why are you failing math? The only thing that happens in math is cash flows and relevant costs. That's the only thing. That's the basis of the whole of math. Cash flows and relevant costs. If it's not relevant to the decision, it's not important. If it's not a cash flow, most of the time, it's not important. So yeah, I'm not saying that now you guys must look at it like that, but then mostly when it comes to the finance portion, that's what it is.
Yeah, also guys, your ratios, I still have a terrible relationship with ratios. But know I think in undergrad, they don't really tell you the formulas, right? You have to like actually know.
Even in today.
Yeah, they don't.
You have to actually know, like I said, I had those questions, it's probably not good on camera, but I had those questions that I wouldn't even bother myself because I know even if they come out, it's a waste of my time. Also, I think actually it is relevant because sometimes know when to cut your losses. Like if a question comes and you know that you have no idea what's going on, let that be the last question you answer, because you're gonna waste your time. Sometimes you get so wrapped up in trying to answer a question that you end up messing up your flow for the rest of the question. So no, it's a thing. But anyway, coming back.
But I'm sorry, but do attempt that question, because you know how for mainly APC or ITC,
oh yeah,
it's recommended that you try everything, because maybe anyway that question is going to be assessed as difficult after, and for the fact that you tried, you can get a mark. So make it your last question, but have 1 or 2 sentences.
Yeah, definitely. What goes like is saying, very important. I never left a question. I never left an exam. Also, don't leave exams early, guys.
So now we're supposed to be focusing on study tips. For ratios, what I would advise as a study tip, this is how I used to study my ratios. I used to put them all in one page, divide the page into 4. Well, depending on how big or small your writing is, maybe they'll fit, maybe they won't. But divide your page into 4. You have your profitability ratios, you have your market ratios, you have your, what are the other ratios?
Liquidity and solvency.
Liquidity ratios, and you have solvency, and then you have
and you have those earnings ones, those
earnings ones, yes. So separate them into their separate categories. Personally, I would say, because about once you can put something into a category, so much easier to identify it and to associate it with other things, because you can't be out here was with oh no, current ratio, current assets over equity, and you have them all listed in one page, and then they're going to say profitability ratios, and you hear saying current assets to current liabilities. No.
Also, that's
you're gonna lose the mark. So I advise that you categorize your ratios, whether you do it all in one page. I used to do it all in one page because I'm a visual learner, so I know the left corner, the right corner, the bottom corner, the whatever corner. But then if you want to have just one page for your liquidity ratios, you can do that also.
Also, guys, with your
when they study, it is categorized already, right?
Yeah,
so you must just
like
follow
slides.
Yeah, how you get it from school.
Yeah, but you know how some people, I know, Wuti, I'm the type of learner that I never used to study headings. So
I never saw your ratios. One of the most, I think it's underrated. Also, no, there's a year-on-year, like also a year-on-year comparison. You can also use that, because I think we get so focused on, let's do, especially when they don't specify, like do like focus on profitability ratios or whatever, they just say ratios, or they just do a financial analysis. Remember, financial analysis is literally you analyzing financial statements. So we are concerned if you had really high revenue and now your revenue this year has came down. So also have that thing. I think also like in your reading time, as much as I say, don't focus on answering, but you can just do a quick analysis of say revenue is going, like literally putting an arrow and stuff like that. And then when you're answering, because I know like the other ratios might catch you off guard, so also just go year-on-year comparison. So anything that strikes out on you year-on-year, write that down. And also remember, as much as you know your formulas, our degree requires you to know how to apply things. It requires you to think critically. You don't just get to say the current ratio went up or down. You need to say it went up or down.
Which is
why?
affected by.
Yeah, affected by why. So, like for example, if you know that the thing that makes up this ratio is your assets and your liabilities, then go further to be like, it went down. That's because this asset went up. But this asset might have gone up or went up because of this. And usually you get it in your scenario of something happened. Link that. It's a lot of, you don't read, also in finance, you don't read things in isolation. It's almost always intertwined. So your ratios, everything that's happening throughout your paper will really help you like analyze the ratios. Yeah.
And also linking the ratios itself. So like your revenue can't be going up while your cost is going down.
Mm-hmm.
That depreciation is going down, but your PPE is going up. So just link the ratios themselves, link it back to the scenario. Usually that will give you wide increase or decrease.
Guys, we're really trying to run away from costing here.
But also guys, with the ratios also, be careful of the wording. For me, I feel like a lot of things I really took note of in CTA is that we are so focused on wanting to answer that we don't really read what the question is. So with your ratios, like she said, they'll say financial analysis sometimes. That's your financial statements as a whole. But when they say performance, it's only your performance ratios that affect your income statement. If they say then, what do they normally say for that?
Liquidity and solvency.
Yeah. So then where do you focus more on your balance sheet? And also normally what triggers those year-on-year comparisons that she was talking about, if they give you 2013 and 2014, best believe they want you to do that movement of equity. It moved from 13% to 14%, and then you go conclude.
Yeah, guys, let's get into costing.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, we're gonna go into, like I said, we're gonna go into costing. So costing, I think we all most of us don't have a good relationship with costing. So we're pretty much gonna touch on the bigger topics, just study tips on that, I guess, and then general tips where we can. So with me, I'm just gonna touch on standard costing because I think it's one of like the bigger topics. So with that, you need to know your formulas, and when you are studying your formulas, know know what goes first. So here we have like the order of your formula is very important. If you start with budgeted instead of starting with the actual, because then it distorts your variance. You could see a negative variance where it's actually positive, and that affects how you actually interpret and write down your qualitative factors for your variance. And another thing is that obviously you get your variance right, and also use the scenario to guide you on what's happening. So if your variance, maybe like your price variance is bad, maybe then in the scenario they had said that they changed suppliers, so you could use that, then say like the price variance is bad because they changed suppliers and they could be getting like either more expensive prices. So use your scenario to your advantage when you do your analysis of the variance.
Yeah. And guys, well, personally, standard costing for me wasn't a difficult topic, but like I think the more difficult portion, because it's formulas, guys, not because of anything. It has formulas. I'm good at cramming formulas. But then when it came to the discussion portion of it, you know, like how she said, they go hand in hand. You have your price variance and then you have your material variance, right? So if they change the supplier, yes, the supplier might be cheap, but what does that mean? It's also a cheap, like a
inferior.
Yeah, it's an inferior quality. So obviously they go hand in hand. So you can always use the same reasoning of changing the supplier for both the variances. So don't think, oh no, just because they change suppliers to, yes, if they go to a cheaper supplier, then it's going to cause a positive variance in the price, because obviously now they are maybe making more profit or whatever. But then it's going to then maybe affect the way that the product is sold, the demand to the customers. Are the customers still wanting to buy that product? Yeah, but all of that.
So guys, pretty much connect the dots.
Yeah, be able to connect the dots. They usually go hand in hand, and then you have your labor, and then what else?
You also have your is it the optical mix where you have two products? Is it two products? Yeah. But anyway, guys, so we said for standard costing, your formulas are very important. How you interpret them, use your scenario for your interpretation. Yeah. Then I think that's all from my side for standard costing.
Yeah, and I think standard costing is tested not typically differently in terms of the level that you are. In third year, they like giving you that, I don't know whether it's a statement or what, but that flexed budget question, where they say flex the budget and whatever not. Yeah, that's a whole different, there's a certain way that you need to present it for that whole flex budget question. But then when you get to CTA level, I think that what they want to focus on more is more the discussion portion, how you are able to apply the calculation to the discussion. And what's important there is that you always need to conclude, guys. I think they're always going to write the point. They're going to write, okay, the price changed because of this, this, and this. And then you must conclude, management needs to investigate why prices have changed, or management. They always have the conclusion of management needs to investigate the changes, basically, though. Yeah.
Yes, I'm gonna say. But anyway, And one more thing that I just thought about that we discussed before was also with her saying the different ways they ask under costing, they also have a tendency of asking where they don't give you calculate the price variance. They give you this is the price variance or this is the whatever. They give you the answer, then you're supposed to work backwards. With answering those kind of questions, I think across all the modules, you can better answer those questions if you understand the initial calculation itself. So yes, know your formulas, but also know what you're calculating. So it's like, know why do you calculate a material or a price variance, because it helps you to then, because you sort of like need to work backwards, and the only way you know work backwards is if you know your way forward and why you're doing the thing you're doing, then you're better suited to answer the question.
Yeah. Okay, so that's one of the bigger questions in costing. And then you have your ABC. With the ABC, I think it's also a very structured formula. Most of costing is actually, it has a structure, the whole of costing for math. Okay, but then you need to be able to put everything into its individual topic or whatever. So you have your direct costs, and then you have your indirect costs, and then you have your, you also separate your manufacturing into your non-manufacturing, especially when it comes to your statements. You know how you have your absorption, and then you have your variable statement. Is it called variable, or is it called, it's called different names, the other one, the one that only has variable costs, how then the cost is, I think that one is the one that affects profits, whether if how stock on hand at the beginning of the year or at the end of the year affects profit, whether it reflects a higher profit because more costs are absorbed. So with the absorption costing, I think if you have stock on hand at the end of the year, because those costs are absorbed, it's supposed to reflect a higher profit. And then for the variable cost, I mean, guys, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that there's something that goes on there. So it's
the point is they need to know the difference.
Yes, the point is that you need to know where everything fits in. You need to know where guys, I'm in auditing, mind you. Management, accounting, and costing, I left it in 2022. So I'm sorry if my...
I try not to go into detail.
But yeah, you need to know where everything fits in. So even the same way with ABC, you know how ABC is more driven on your cost drivers. You need to be able to identify what is the cost driver. You need to be able to identify, after identifying the cost driver, then you go into the next step, which is what?
Allocating your cost to your cost drivers.
Yeah, allocating the cost to your cost drivers. See? Teamwork makes the dream work. So yeah, like with costing, that's the most important thing for me. I don't know how better else to put it. When it comes to study technique, it's always just, no, when it comes to studying, yes, that's how you must approach it. But then I think most of the work is done in the exam. How you then approach your exam technique, how you plan out your answer, how you answer, or how you time yourself, how you time yourself, which questions you start with, which questions you don't start with. Yeah, I think costing is just a difficult, it's a complicated, complex portion of math, because there's even that portion of risk and uncertainty, there's that portion of costing or fukuti, how a certain cost is determined, there's the portion of price differentiation. You see, everything is put into a specific category when it comes to costing. So you just need to know which category it falls under for you to be able to then apply it to the question.
Yeah, guys. Also because I think with the different cost, especially with ABC and the other costings and your process costing, etc., it's also important to read your scenario, because I think sometimes with costing, even though it's like the end goal is to do a calculation, they provide like a whole lot of information, and you need to be able to like read, sort of like try to read word for word. Don't skim through the thing, because I think sometimes you get so caught up in the information that it confuses you so much. But try to read it and then break it down to your understanding, because also I think sometimes what I don't know how to say this properly, like politically correct, but sometimes we fail because we did not understand the English. So it's that is this 2 pages of information to answer this one question, and then you read, and then you get confused, because it's like with your ABC, you need to identify your cost drivers, but for you to know what drives the cost, you need to understand what is the actual expense, you need to understand what have they said. So it's like that thing of when you read for understanding, read for knowing that you're gonna come back. Because also with your standard costing, you're gonna come and sometimes some things are in kilograms and then some things in grams. You need to like make the decision of, am I gonna work with kilograms or am I gonna work with grams?
Right.
So it's that thing of make a decision. And also I think they used to say like a lot of, my lecturers used to say like, plan your answer before you start writing. So you want, especially in costing, because I think costing gets to be like a lot of calculations. So you want to know that I'm approaching this question this way, so that you don't have so many, because sometimes it turns out that like you had so many calculations on your paper, then you get the memo, and then you realize that it was so structured, and had you structured it better, you would have spent so much time trying to answer it. So it's also that thing, plan before you write.
Yeah, and I think the one question they like in costing, they like having 2 models that they want you to differentiate. So they can ask you to calculate exactly the same thing, but using 2 different models. So I think that's where the importance of knowing where everything fits into the different model for the calculations, because ABC and absorption costing, you need to understand how absorption costing works so that you can be able to compare it to ABC. And I think sometimes it's easier in a calculation question, because with the calculation you just have to perform the calculation and get the answer. But then once they say discuss, that's where the problem starts, because now I think our brains, what they tend to do is panic. And the easiest thing, one thing I've noticed in math, for math, sometimes when it comes to discussion questions, you get marks for just stating the obvious, and you don't really have to complicate your life so much. Yeah
guys, then that's pretty much our study video. I think we'll just, for the summaries, because we tend to go through, like it tends to be like we're gonna say summary, then it's gonna be like another 10 minutes. So I think what we'll try to do for you guys is just maybe, if we get the time, so just maybe put down notes. Yeah, so that you guys can have find this the video, but this is the summarization of everything. We hope.
Oh no, never mind.
Hope you guys enjoyed this video. We know, it might be a bit long, but yeah. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you guys next time on our YouTube channel.
Bye.
Bye guys.